The Democrats have sunk to a new low now. Mark Warner, the odious senator from Virginia, who promised only to run for 2 terms, by the way, and then ended up, I believe, just announcing his candidacy for his 5th term as senator of Virginia. Yeah, that guy. He came on a Morning Joe this morning, and what he said is going to make your blood boil. Take it away, Mark.
It is 5:30. Live look at the Capitol as the Trump administration shifts responsibility for that September boat strike to Admiral Frank Bradley. Bradley will head to Capitol Hill tomorrow, where he is expected to brief top members of the Armed Services and Intelligence Committees about those attacks. Joining us now, one of the lawmakers who will meet with Admiral Bradley tomorrow, Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Democratic Senator Mark Warner of Virginia. Senator, thank you for coming on the show.
We will get to this exchange in a quick second, but I need to jump in and interject about how deceitful, duplicitous, and obnoxiously slanted that intro was. I'm sorry, there's no shifting of blame going on here. This admiral, as I told you in the last program, is a graduate of the Naval Academy. Immediately in 1991, upon getting his commission, went right to Coronado, tried out for the SEAL team, made it, went through BUDS. He's now in charge of all special operations. He is a badass. He's not taking any crap. And now, the administration is shifting blame, like they're throwing this admiral under the bus. Now, here's what they're trying to do. They're trying to General Kelly this guy. They're trying to get this guy, the beast, the machine, the monster inside Washington, D.C., is trying to tap this guy on the shoulder. Listen, he's a flag officer, all right? He's a 4-star admiral. He makes a nice paycheck, relatively speaking, to the military. But compared to the kind of money that jackasses like this guy make in politics in Washington, D.C., everybody knows that these generals and admirals are just about a year or 2 away from retiring, and then they sit on boards of directors, okay? And what they do is these politicians get in their ear and they say, listen, I'll put in a good word for you. It'll be a nice paycheck. And listen, these are admirable people. They have honor. They respect and love their country, but they've also sacrificed decades and put their lives on the line. And yes, sometimes it's intoxicating to hear that little voice that says, listen, if you just play the game in Washington, you've given enough to this country. When you retire, you'll have all these cushy board of directors jobs. You'll finally make the cash that all of these losers like Mark Warner have made. You just got to play the political game a little bit. And then you'll have this nice cushy retirement. And haven't you done enough for this country? Isn't it about time that you got that paycheck too? That's what's happening here. They're trying to turn this admiral, and they're creating this narrative. Oh, they're now shifting blame. It's not shifting blame. The Washington Post erroneously said that Pete Hegseth picked up the phone in the middle of this airstrike and said, kill them all. I want them all dead. Shoot them down now. And that never happened. The truth of the story has come out. Hegseth, after meeting with attorneys and JAG officers and legal consultants, put forth the orders. Everyone signed off on them. And then at that point, the commanders in the military are in charge of executing the attack. And this admiral, who is, again, a badass and knows the rules of engagement, knows the legal orders and what is an illegal order, he did his job. So now when they say, well, he's shifting blame, no. The truth is now out about what happened and who was in charge and who made whatever orders that had to be made to do their duty. And it's contrary to the original fake report from the Washington Post. And so instead of saying, well, the Washington Post got the story wrong, and here's what really happened. No, instead, Mika says they're shifting blame and they're throwing this admiral under the bus, which is not what's happening at all. You may call it shifting blame, Mika. You know what it really is? It's called the chain of command. It's called how the military operates. And Pete Hegseth specifically put out a public statement saying that this admiral is the best of the best. He has full confidence in him. He did nothing wrong. Nobody did anything wrong. But they are so far out on a limb on this story that they've got to stick with what they originally suggested, which is that there was illegal orders, that there were war crimes, that we need Mark Kelly to sweep in and become the new president, or whatever the hell their new narrative is. And so now here's Mark Warner taking up that ball, and watch what he does. Watch how slimy and slippery this scumbag is.
What are some of the questions that you will want answers to from Admiral Bradley tomorrow?
I'm going to want to get answers on what did Pete Hegseth order? Why haven't we seen the whole unedited video? If there's nothing inappropriate here, you could have cleared this up without the Admiral coming in. He's got a great reputation. I respect him. I want to get the truth, and I'm not sure we've had the truth from Hegseth yet. Remember, this is an administration that has treated the uniformed military with unprecedented disrespect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump. This is an administration that's fired, uniform generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Mm-hmm. And I think in many ways, the uniformed military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump. And I expect Bradley to adhere to that.
Oh, you son of a bitch. You absolute despicable son of a bitch. I hope you caught all of that. Let's break it down quickly here. By the way, while he's talking, is he like part serpent or something? What's with the bizarre darting tongue coming out of his mouth in the middle of a word? Did you see what I saw? It's very strange.
What did Pete Hegseth order? Why haven't we seen the whole unedited video? If there's nothing inappropriate here, you could have cleared this up without the Admiral coming in. He's got a great reputation.
Well, no. But first of all, how many times do we see unedited videos of military strikes? Right? We see one quick shot. And on this thing, we've seen a quick shot. But how often does the military release all of their unedited full battle videos that they've got from drones or from aircraft executing? That's very rare to do. You could have answered the question and not had the Admiral come in. Well, first of all, that's not true, because again, let's just be clear. Hegseth gives the order. Then the battle commanders actually carry out the orders. If there are questions, then yeah, you want to go to the source and talk to the Admiral about it. Number one. Number two, these guys are just in it for a political. See, here's what's happening with Mark Warner. Number one, part of it is what I just said. They're trying to turn this Admiral. They're trying to get in his ear, and they're trying to make him think that the Trump administration is throwing him under the bus, right? That's part of it. But here's the other part. Mark Kelly wants to have a political showdown with Pete Hegseth in a committee room in the Senate. That's what he wants. He wants the cameras. He wants the drama. All the Democrats do. The last thing they want is to have a scene where they have a 4-star admiral in his Navy uniform with his real earned medals, thank you very much, on his chest. A man who was first on the ground in Afghanistan after 9/11. The last thing they want is to have that warrior sitting across from them and making them look like the sleazebags that they are. So that's why he's like, I don't know why we need the Admiral here. We don't know. Pete Hegseth can answer all the questions. We want Pete. We don't want the Admiral. They don't want anything to do with this guy unless they can flip him, unless they can sort of get in his ear. And I don't think they can, because this man is a stud. This man is a stud. And they are playing with the wrong characters here, if that's their game. But that's what they're trying to do.
I respect him. I want to get the truth, and I'm not sure we've had the truth from Hegseth yet.
I want to get the truth, and I'm not sure we've had the truth. Well, first of all the players involved in this so far, from Mark Kelly to the Seditious Six to Mika Brzezinski to the Washington Post and Natasha Bertrand and the CNN, and then to Pete Hegseth, one person has had the same consistent story throughout. That's Pete Hegseth. Throughout the entire thing. I'm not sure we've had the truth. Oh, you're not sure you've had the truth? Well, that's because you read the Washington Post, because they're the ones who got the story wrong. It even took the New York Times to publicly spank those bastards. I want to get the truth, and I'm not sure we've had the truth. Okay, well, if you're not sure you've had the truth, that means maybe you have had the truth. So when you say you want to get the truth, perhaps you've already gotten the truth. This is all bullshit. And they are so desperate now that at the end of this little word salad that would make Kamala Harris hungry for a second visit to the bar, he openly calls for the military to defy this administration and upend the civilian leadership of our military. Listen to his words.
Remember, this is an administration that has treated the uniformed military with unprecedented disrespect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump.
Oh, this administration has treated the military with unprecedented respect. The last administration fired, dishonorably discharged thousands of members of the uniformed military because they refused to get the shot for COVID. And they were dismissed, discharged from duty. Nothing disrespectful about that. What a pig. Yeah, the commander-in-chief and the secretary of war called all the flag officers for a meeting at Quantico so that they were all on the same page about what the new direction of the Pentagon was going to be. And it only takes a mealy-mouthed little pathetic crumb like Mark Warner to suggest that that is disrespectful of the military. Excuse me, which admiral or general resigned as a result of that disrespect? Could you give me the list? How about just the one name? Is there one name? There is not one name. If it was so disrespectful of those generals and admirals, why have they all kept their jobs? Where's Mika, by the way, challenging all of these bald-faced lies? Well, we know where Mika is.
This is an administration that's fired, uniform generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And I think...
Yeah, but do you know what the Defense Intelligence Agency did in the last administration? Do you know what the NSA did during the first Trump administration and their participation in the Russian collusion hoax? We've all seen the unredacted documents now. How dare you fire someone? You know what? Sometimes, Senator Warner, people who get fired deserve to be fired. This is all politics. And they're using not only the commanders in our military, they're using the personnel. Here's the thing. There were enlisted men. There were, junior officers who were involved in this mission, and they did a great job, and they did their job. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. And he's playing politics with them. He's playing politics with their lives. He's playing politics with their careers. This is why, before this new administration, because we had leaders like this, it's why we had empty ranks in our military. It's why recruitment was so low, why we couldn't keep people in the military because of this behavior. And then finally, the last words here.
I think in many ways, the uniformed military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump. And I expect
the military may save us from this administration. There's another word for that. The military may save us from this administration. Let me replace those words for a second. This administration is the executive branch of government whose leadership was elected by the American people through the Electoral College process. And, oh, by the way, he got the popular vote too just a year ago. So what he's saying is the military will save us from the man the people in America voted for to be our president. And how exactly does the military save us from the duly elected president? How do you expect them to do that, sir? Oh, he's going to leave that part unanswered. You don't hate these people enough. Quick reminder here, his pal Eric Swalwell over in the other chamber of Congress.
Remember, this is an administration that has treated the uniformed military with unprecedented disrespect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump. This is an administration that's fired, uniform generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And I think in many ways, the uniformed military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump.
I'm heartened by what I learned from our members in the military, and they tell me at town halls, or the ones who I've had longstanding friendships with, that we shouldn't count them out as a check on abuses of power. And of course, you have the congressional check from Article 1 of the Constitution. The judiciary is supposed to be independent. Not a lot of faith in either of those right now. But members of the military have told me, they're not going to follow illegal orders.
All right, so that's Swalwell. And so are you catching a theme here from these Democrats? Are you catching a theme from these despicable individuals? Yeah, don't count the military out from holding the administration accountable. Oh, sure, we have Article 1. We have the legislative branch and we have the judiciary. But Eric Swalwell has lost faith in the legislative branch of government, of which he participates as one of the 435 members of the House. And he's lost faith in the judiciary because the Supreme Court has deemed the rogue judges that are trying to stop the executive branch completely unconstitutional and out of line. So because he's lost faith in the constitutional process to have oversight over the executive branch, Eric Swalwell says, don't worry, folks, because the military will have our backs. I'm sorry. Can someone please, in the comment section, show me the part of the Constitution that empowers the military to hold the executive branch of government, duly elected by the American people, accountable? Can you explain to me how the military is supposed to supersede the legislative branch and the judicial branch, and in some way hold the executive branch accountable? That's Eric Swalwell's Constitution. It doesn't exist, of course. It's just a fever dream of these lunatic Democrats who are basically calling for a coup. And if I'm overstating the case, if you think that I'm leaping to the wrong conclusion, please tell me exactly what they are saying here then. Because I think when you dabble in this sort of deal, perhaps you should be very precise with your language. But I've now got two of them. And thank you to Western Lensman for doing this mashup for us. Great account on X. I've got Warner here saying that the military will save us from the Trump administration. And I've got Swalwell saying that his sources in the military say, don't count us out from holding the administration accountable. And they're celebrating it. They're cheering it on. They're instigating it. They're calling for it. And then there's the poster child of the deep state under the Clinton and Obama regimes, Leon Panetta, yesterday.
There is no lawyer that I'm aware of who indicates that second strike is not a war crime. These were individuals in the water who were wounded. It is against the law to strike and kill those individuals. They did that. As far as I'm concerned, there is a war crime involved here, and it's for that reason that I think we need to hold people accountable. Secretary of Defense should be somebody who stands by the law, who stands by the requirements that you have to put in place if you're going to responsibly conduct aggressive action against anybody. That's the responsibility of the Secretary of Defense.
This guy was the CIA director, by the way, back when some really, really cool stuff happened, like U.S. citizens getting droned to death by the Obama administration. But that wasn't a war crime. He was a former CIA director. He also, by the way, put his name on that beautiful document that attested to the world that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation. That's this guy. That's this guy now calling this a war crime. And by the way, everything he just said about the military strike against the Venezuelan narco terrorists is taken right from the now completely disreputed and debunked Washington Post story. And again, no one on MS Now is following up and saying, excuse me, former CIA Director Panetta, if I could just say, you just said that the second strike against survivors. Isn't it true that according to the command structure in the Pentagon, there wasn't a second strike on survivors? It was all a continuous strike with a second blow to the wreckage of the boat to ensure that the wreckage and whatever narcotics were in that boat were destroyed. If there were survivors amongst that wreckage, there was no way for them to not carry out their duty without having casualties. But that's kind of what happens in war. Isn't that the case? But of course, that question was never asked because MS Now is not in the business of news. Where the NBC people could not be happier right now to have that peacock off of the logo. Okay, so that's Leon Panetta, but there's more. They continue this narrative. And again, I started the program by saying that I thought that they couldn't sink any lower. But they don't have a way to defeat Donald Trump ever again. They'll never be able to. He can't run again. He's already beaten them. They threw everything they could at him, and he still won the election. So now what are they going to do? Well, they don't have the power to impeach him. So now they've got to up the level of hysteria to such a point where they actually have people openly discussing some sort of military commandeering of the White House because it's the only way they think they can get Trump out of the White House. Until, of course, they win the elections next year. And that's what a lot of this is all about. They want chaos. They want a daily dose of chaos, and they want all of us at each other's throats. So when the election comes along next year, and this was their playbook, by the way, in 2018, last time Trump was president, they created so much chaos and they created so much anger and vitriol in this country that you had people even who supported Trump to just say, yeah, I like him, but God, I'm just fatigued by all of this. I'm just done. I just want us to, be friends again. I want us to be able to talk again in this country. So they ripped us apart and they created all this chaos just so they can win and get into power. And then what did they do when they were in power? Impeachment, investigation, impeachment, investigation. And that's what they want because that's all they've got. They want us to hate each other. Don't give in to this. If you want to hate somebody, hate the people who are directing this. Hate the people who are instigating this, who are trying to make us divided, who are trying to have us at each other's throats at Christmas time. That's where your anger should be focused. All right, watch.
Was this self-defense, and how do the rules of international waters play into whether this was a war crime?
Yeah, in my opinion, no. This is not self-defense. And no matter where you do the strike, if it's not self-defense, then it's illegal. And look, I have a lot of sympathy for the general idea that when we send our service members out into combat, they got some very difficult decisions to make. When you look at what was going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you're stopping someone, do they have a gun? Do they have a suicide vest? Are they a threat? When you're in the middle of an insurgency with roadside bombs and car bombs and all of that, even in the aftermath of the Afghanistan pullout, when we had that suicide bomber kill 13 service members and hundreds of people in Kabul, and we did that strike against a car that we thought was a threat that turned out not to be a threat, I have some sympathy for that. But people on a boat in the middle of the Caribbean carrying...
Let me just quickly translate. All the stuff that happened that killed innocent people when a Democrat was the president, I have sympathy for that. And listen, Congressman Smith is a Green Beret. He's seen some stuff. That's great. He's never been in an operation like this. I'm sorry, he hasn't. He's been in different kinds of operations. He's using the rules of engagement in the last war, the war that he engaged in, the one that he thinks was the good one. And he's now applying it to dealing with narco terrorists who have already been led into this country by the last president. He had not a damn thing to say about it, who have murdered Americans, who continue to bring drugs into this country, poisoning our children. And the administrations before have done nothing about it. If anything, they've empowered the governments who have allowed this to happen. You realize that the Biden administration sent passenger planes to Venezuela, filled them with these gang members, and then flew them into America to let them loose into American cities. And now, since Trump sent them back or sent them to the prison in El Salvador, and now they're not getting carte blanche here, now they're trying to get here in boats. And so our military is doing something about this finally. And Adam Smith, respect his record as a Green Beret and the war that he fought decades ago, is now saying he is exactly the politician that he would have hated when he was in country with boots on the ground in the desert in Afghanistan, when he served his country loyally. Because now he's sitting in a cushy air-conditioned office in Washington, D.C., saying, oh, yeah, you can't do that. That's illegal. That's wrong. Absolutely. You know what, Congressman? You're a congressman. You think it's illegal? Do something about it. Don't go on MS Now and start screaming about it. And don't undermine the chain of command by suggesting that the military should take matters into their own hand or disobey orders. You're a congressman. So do something about it. Propose legislation. Call for a hearing. Use your bully pulpit. But instead, he's exactly what people in the military hate about Washington, D.C. And I guarantee you, when he was in uniform, carrying a firearm and protecting this country and fighting for freedom, he would bitch about people just like him today.
And cocaine are not a direct threat to the lives of our service members or Americans.
Yeah, sure. A boat carrying cocaine, which, by the way, again, narco terrorists. This group has been determined to be a terrorist group by the commander-in-chief. That's completely legal. The State Department has also determined it through the Secretary of State, completely legal. There's no question about it. They have the power to determine who is a terrorist group and who isn't. If this was a boat full of Al-Qaeda, and we knew that they were Al-Qaeda, and they were powering their way to America, and they had a boat full of weapons, would the congressman say it was okay to blast them out of the water? Of course he would. Okay, so that was his war. That was 20 years ago. Now there's this war. And American children are getting murdered. Innocents are dying. And I'm sorry that he can't wrap his brain around that. But then you take one step further. Forget about saying, oh, we really shouldn't kill the narco terrorists. No. How about actually defending the narco terrorists?
You know, one of the factors that drives use in the United States is demand. And most narco traffickers are not in those boats. They pay people to do that. And usually people who are not significantly involved with narco trading, it's the way they make money.
Yeah, this is the big narrative I keep hearing. Oh, you know, the people who are riding the boats, those are just the little soldiers. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just desperate. In fact, they're probably Maryland men who are just trying to earn some money to take their special needs child to elementary school. So we shouldn't be doing anything to them. Don't you have any sympathy for them? They're just trying to earn an honest buck. And really, ultimately, it's our fault because we have demand for these drugs in this country. So really, this is because America sucks. Have you noticed the letter next to everybody's name here who's engaging in this crap? It's a D. Take note, please. Please take note of that. Meanwhile, I don't even want to, but you should see The View. They had to chime in.
I feel like I'm in A Few Good Men. Who ordered the code red? You ordered the code red. Pete Hegseth clearly ordered the code red here. Yeah. That would be a war crime. And it's very clear if you do follow an unlawful order and you're in the military, you can be court-martialed and you can be prosecuted and you can be put in jail.
There you go. So there's Sonny Hostin, great, expert on the Uniform Code of Military Justice, reaching the determination based on the Few Good Men standard that this is a war crime, and not only is Hegseth guilty, but anyone in the military in the chain of command is guilty for following those orders. She has no idea that before these missions are executed, there is a judge advocate general in the room giving their legal advisement on what they can and can't do during the military strike. Fine. It doesn't matter. The facts don't matter. Logic doesn't matter. What matters to these people, whether it's Senator Sonny Hostin from the great state of The View, or Senator Mark Warner, and everybody in between. Logic, facts, law, Constitution, none of it matters. They have reached a new depth in undermining our Constitution, the chain of command, our military, the Pentagon, the Secretary of War, the President of the United States, and every single officer and enlisted men through the ranks. They are trying to undermine everything about the structure of our military because they hate Trump that much. And ultimately, it's because they hate you so much for voting for him. Because make no mistake, this is not about going after Trump. It's about going after the people's choice to be president. So what does the president have to say about it? What does Secretary Hegseth have to say about it? Yesterday, this, of course, came up during the cabinet meeting.
I'll say again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. And Joe Biden tried to approach it with kid gloves. And allowed them to come across the border, cartels take over community, 20 million people, hundreds of thousands of Americans poisoned. And President Trump said, no, we're taking the gloves off. We're taking the fight to these designated terror organizations. And it's exactly what we're doing. So we're stopping the drugs, we're striking the boats, we're defeating narco terrorists, and we're standing.
And you may say one thing, that drugs coming in through the sea by sea are down 91%.
I'm not sure either, sir,
but down 91% by sea.
We've had a bit of a pause because it's hard to find boats to strike right now, which is the entire point, right? Deterrence has to matter, not arrest and hand over and then do it again, the rinse and repeat approach of previous administrations. This is meant to get after that approach.
That's right. That's the whole point. And the fact is that it is bearing results. You heard that, 91% right now, reduction in the amount of drugs coming to this country over sea. There's still work to be done, clearly. But it's funny. The more boats you blow out of the water and send to the bottom of the ocean, the more, it's not the narco terrorists who are doing it. They have soldiers to do this. It's funny because they're not stupid. And it's fine. It comes harder and harder to find somebody to take a boat from Venezuela and get to Florida or wherever they're headed full of drugs when they know that, Pedro and Carlos, who just took the last boat, they never came back. But you see, they don't want to know. The Democrats in this country and the media, they don't want to know about what works and what actually keeps America safe. That's not a priority for them. The priority is stopping this man. The priority is undermining your vote.
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters. President Trump has empowered commanders to do what is necessary, which is dark and difficult things in the dead of night on behalf of the American people. We support them, and we will stop the poisoning of the American people.
Hot damn, brother. Now, let me just say, I can't believe I've already gone 30 minutes in our first segment, over 30 minutes. I promise I'll tighten up the next two segments. They've been telling us that Pete Hegseth is going to go, that his days are numbered. He's on his way out. They told us Pete Hegseth wouldn't even make it to a confirmation hearing. They told us a year ago. If you go back, watch our program from a year ago. It's right here on this channel where you're watching us right now. They were saying that he wouldn't even make it till Christmas because of all of these things. He doesn't have the support in the Senate. He doesn't have the support from the intelligentsia and the experts and from the military. Nobody likes him. He won't be the Secretary of Defense. Then they told us he wouldn't even make it to a committee hearing. And then he met all the senators and he got to the committee hearing and he got the vote and he got out of committee. It doesn't matter. He's not going to make it past the floor. Mitch McConnell will vote no, and Susan Collins will vote no, and all the usual suspects will vote no. But then he got the vote, and then he was Secretary of Defense, and then Signalgate happened. That's it. Hegseth is gone. There's no way he'll last. Hegseth is still here. Look at that picture. Look at those two men. He is the Secretary of Defense. Do you know how you get rid of the Secretary of Defense?
War.
Excuse me. Thank you. Secretary of War. Appreciate it, Kevin. They want to get rid of the Secretary of War. They want him gone. You know how to do that? There's only one way. Now that he's in office, there's only one way to do it. The man whose side he is sitting beside right now, the commander-in-chief, it's his decision. And you just saw the two of them interacting at this cabinet meeting yesterday. As long as Donald Trump is satisfied and pleased with the job that Pete Hegseth is doing, Pete Hegseth goes nowhere. And the more people try to stab him in the back, the more people who undermine him, the more people who are coming out screaming their heads off about how Hegseth is incompetent and Hegseth has to go. You think that makes a difference to Donald Trump? Do you think Donald Trump is going to, well, yeah, it's getting too hot here, Pete. I mean, there are too many people who are criticizing. You really think that's how Trump operates? Why are so many people against Hegseth? Well, to put it kindly, it's because Pete Hegseth doesn't operate like prior secretaries of defense. He's very different. He has a different approach. That's also the exact reason why Trump loves him and why he's not going anywhere.